Okay, this is the fall semester Show What You Know. This is part 4. We're going to finish up this activity today. We got 5 problems left. Numbers 10 and 11 are just basic exponent problems. So we're just going to review what we know about working with exponents. In the case of number 10, we have a base of 3 and an exponent of 5. That tells us that we're going to use the number 3 and we're going to multiply that 5 different times. So 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. You should have 5 3s by the time you're done writing that problem. I like to work these in trees, so I connect these because I just find it so much easier. What I don't connect, I bring down. Okay, so I was able to connect those 2 3s here and these 2 3s, but I was not able to connect this last bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring this down. So I'm just basically simplifying as I go through the problem, but I'm kind of baby stepping it to make sure that I'm doing it correct. So 3 times 3 is 9. I've already brought this multiplication symbol down that I didn't use. 3 times 3 here is 9. I bring down this multiplication symbol, but there is another 3 attached that I'm going to go ahead and just bring down with it. So now I have 9 times 9 times 3. So now I can even further break that down. 9 times 9 is 81. I did not use this multiplied by 3, so I'm just going to bring this down again. Now I'm left with 81 times 3. I'm going to come over here and use some work area, and I'm left with 3. 243 is my answer. Okay. There's not a really easy way that you can check this other than just multiplying. So if you want to do it, you can work it from left to right that time and just try a different method and see if you get the same thing. Or you could just use the old method that we just used. Now, if you look on number 11, we're going to combine a couple of different concepts. We have a basic exponent problem to the second power, which is squared. But the problem is that we have a decimal as our base. So we're going to combine a couple of different things here. So our base is 1.5. So that means we're going to take 1.5 and we're going to multiply it twice, which is squared. So you have 1.5 times 1.5. Now, if it gets too confusing with a decimal there and a multiplication symbol, remember, we can always write it as our parentheses. And parentheses also mean to multiply. So if you come up here, I'm just going to stack these. 1.5 times 1.5. Now, in looking at it, I know that I'm going to have to count over. And I'm going to have to count over in my final answer and place the decimal. So I'm just going to go ahead, though, and I'm going to multiply as usual. 5 times 5 is 25. I bring that up and I get 75. I have to put that 0 down because that's our first step when we're multiplying a second row. And 1 times 5 is 5, and 1 times 1 is, okay. So now I have 225. The only problem is that I have to move decimals still. So in the top and the bottom numbers, oops, they moved 1 time. I moved that over 1 time and that over 1 time. So that means that I have 2. So I have to start here like it was a whole number, and I have to move my decimal place 2 spaces. I'm left with a final answer of 2.25. Okay? And if I want to multiply it again just to double check to make sure that I did my work correctly, I can do so. Looking at evaluating the expression for 12 and 13, I know that I've got, again, just order of operations, but it does include an exponent. So I'm going to rewrite my order of operations. Okay, so parentheses first, then exponents, multiplication and division, and then addition and subtraction. Sometimes we see another operation within the parentheses. So in the case of 9 minus 7 to the third power times 6. Well, this is kind of cool because we see parentheses and exponents. We just have to ask ourselves which one we're going to work with first. We are going to work with parentheses first, so I'm going to put a 1 there. We know the exponent will be second, and then the multiplication will be third. So this one we can easily number over the top of the problem. Sometimes they're not as easy, but this one we can do it. I'm going to rewrite it as I go because it's important to not mess up your order. So you need to rewrite it so you're not leaving things out. So the first thing I do is what's in parentheses. The first thing I'm going to do is what's in parentheses. So 9 minus 7 is 2 to the third power times 6 is what I'm left with. So I'm just simplifying each time that I'm going through. Now, my second portion is my exponents. We see that even though there's a parentheses, it just means 2 to the third power. 2 to the third power is, 2 times 2 times 2. 4 times 2 is 8. So I'm left with 8 times 6. Notice each time I'm bringing down the part of the problem that I didn't use. Okay, so I didn't use the times 6, so that I have to bring that down. And then I'm left with 8 times 6, and that is 48. Again, double check that just to make sure that you've done that correct. I'm going to erase the other part of my problem so I don't get confused. I'm going to work this next problem. This one is not so easy when putting a number above and going ahead and putting the order that you want to work it. So I would just suggest just kind of working this and using problem solving as you're going through. So the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to write my tier, parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division. Multiplication and division, you work from left to right if they're both present, and addition and subtraction is the same way as well. So I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to erase this. Okay. So I know that I have to work parentheses first. And what's in my parentheses is this 3 squared minus 1. Well, I've got 2 operations in that parentheses. So I have to make sure, I'm going to go ahead and write the whole thing. I've got an exponent out there that tells me I'm probably going to do that last since there's nothing else with us. So within this parentheses set alone, I have a exponent and I also have a subtraction. Well, it tells me I'm going to do my exponent first. So I'm just going to rewrite this. 3 squared is 9 because that's 3 times 3. I'm going to rewrite the rest of my problem around it, and I'm now left with n minus 1 to the second power, which is squared, n minus 1 squared. I have to do what's inside of this parentheses in order to do this exponent second. So 1, 2 in this case. 9 minus 1 is 8 squared, and I'm left with 8 times 8 is 64. Okay, so you're just working those step by step. Here's one of our last problems here. We have evaluate the expression for j plus g to the third power. The really cool thing about this, all we have to do is we just have to plug in what we know and solve. So wherever we see the j, we're going to plug in a 2, and wherever we see the g, we're going to plug in a 4. So I'm just going to rewrite this. 2 plus 4 to the third power. Well, based on our tiers, our parentheses is going to come before our exponents. So I'm going to work what's inside of this parentheses. 2 plus 4 is 6, and I just rewrite my problem. I can take those parentheses off or I can leave them, and I'm left with 6 times 6 times 6. 6 times 6 is 36. I bring down that other multiplied by 6 that I didn't use. Now I have 36 times 6, and I have 216. So 6 to the third power is 216. So I'm left with that. Okay. Now, the last portion that we have right here is very, very easy. We're going to use the distributive property. Now, the distributive property states that if I have A times B plus C, I am going to use these nice little arches, and I'm going to have A times B plus A times C, okay? And normally in between that, we write it like this, plus A times C, okay? This is what it's going to equal. So You can make your arches here, or you can rewrite your problem. 2n plus 4. You're going to put your parentheses around it and make your arches. So the first set is going to be 2 times n. I bring down whatever my operation is right now. Sometimes it's going to get a little bit more complicated, but for right now, we're just going to bring down what we have. Then my second arch is going to be 2 times 4. Okay. Now I can simplify. The cool thing about simplifying a number and a variable when you're multiplying is that you just write it, the number and the variable together. I bring down this plus, and 2 times 4 is 8. So I'm left with 2n plus 8. Okay, so I think that's all the problems for our fall semester Show What You Know. Very good, and if you have any questions, you can email me or we'll talk about them in class. I'll write my H a little bit better. And I hope that you were able to successfully complete these problems with me.